Imagine this. You meet someone at exactly the right moment in your life. Maybe you're both students sitting in the back of a classroom. Maybe you're co-workers surviving the same exhausting job. Maybe you're strangers who somehow end up talking until 3 in the morning about everything you've never told anyone else, and for a while, it feels impossible to imagine your life without them. You share secrets, you create inside jokes, you tell yourself that this person is different, that this friendship is real, permanent. One of those rare human connections that will survive everything. But then something strange happens. Not a fight, not a betrayal, not even a dramatic ending. Just silence. The messages become shorter. The calls become less frequent. The energy changes in a way neither of you can explain. And one day, without ever officially ending, the friendship simply disappears. Years later, you'll still wonder what happened. Was it something you said? Did they stop caring? Or was the friendship never what you believed it was? Interestingly, one of the strangest facts about human relationships is that most friendships don't actually end because of conflict. They end because of transformation. And perhaps that's what makes friendship so psychologically fascinating. Because unlike family relationships, which are often maintained by obligation, or romantic relationships, which are maintained by explicit commitment, friendship exists in a strange and fragile territory. It survives only as long as two people continue choosing each other. Every day, again and again. And the uncomfortable truth is that most people never understand why friendships secretly fail, because they misunderstand what friendship actually is. We tend to think of friendship as a bond between personalities. But what if friendship is really a bond between identities? And what happens when those identities change? To understand this, we need to go back thousands of years. The ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle believed there were 3 kinds of friendship. The first type was friendship of utility. These relationships exist because both people benefit from each other. Business partners, classmates, co-workers, and countless social connections fall into this category. The second type was friendship of pleasure. These friendships exist because people enjoy each other's company. They laugh together. They share interests. They create experiences. But Aristotle believed there was a third and much rarer type: friendship of virtue. This was the friendship between two people who genuinely admired each other's character and helped each other become better human beings. According to Aristotle, most friendships fail because they were never built on virtue in the first place. They were built on circumstances, and circumstances always change. Think about your closest friendships. How many began because you happened to live in the same neighborhood, attend the same school, work in the same building, share the same hobby, experience the same phase of life? The problem is that we mistake proximity for destiny. When two people spend enough time together, their brains create a powerful illusion of permanence. Psychologists call this the mere exposure effect. The more we encounter someone, the more familiar and emotionally significant they become. But familiarity isn't the same thing as compatibility. And perhaps one of the greatest tragedies of adulthood is realizing that many of the people we once considered irreplaceable were simply products of timing. This isn't cynicism, it's psychology. Human beings are social creatures, but we're also adaptive creatures. We build relationships that support the person we are at a particular moment in time. The teenager who felt understood by rebellious friends eventually becomes an adult seeking stability. The ambitious young professional who valued competition eventually seeks peace. The lonely person who needed validation eventually discovers independence. And when identity changes, relationships often become psychological fossils. They remain physically present while emotionally belonging to a version of ourselves that no longer exists. Ironically, This transformation often happens so slowly that neither person notices it, until one day they do. Modern life has made this phenomenon even more complicated. For most of human history, friendships existed within relatively stable communities. People lived in the same villages, worked similar jobs, shared similar beliefs, and experienced similar life trajectories. Today, everything changes constantly. We move cities, we change careers, we reinvent ourselves online. We consume entirely different realities through algorithms designed to maximize engagement rather than connection. What most people don't realize is that social media didn't just change how we communicate, it changed what friendship feels like. For the first time in human history, we can maintain the illusion of connection without maintaining actual intimacy. We see photographs of birthdays we weren't invited to. We react to life updates without participating in the lives themselves. We observe people aging, succeeding, marrying, failing, and changing while never actually speaking to them. This creates a strange psychological state. We feel emotionally attached to people who no longer play meaningful roles in our lives. And because we can still see them, we convince ourselves that the friendship still exists. But visibility is not intimacy, familiarity is not connection, and memory is not relationship. Perhaps this explains why so many people feel surrounded by social contact and yet profoundly alone. The psychologist Robin Dunbar proposed something fascinating. After studying social behavior across species, he concluded that human beings can only maintain around 150 stable relationships. More importantly, only about 5 of those relationships can remain deeply intimate at any given time. This finding challenges one of the biggest myths in modern culture, the idea that successful people maintain large, permanent social circles. The reality is much stranger. Every new relationship demands psychological resources, time, attention, emotional energy. And because these resources are limited, every friendship we strengthen unintentionally weakens others. This isn't a personal failure, it's mathematics. Research on adult friendships consistently reveals a disturbing pattern. The majority of close friendships significantly decline within approximately 7 years, unless active effort is invested in maintaining them. 7 years. That's longer than many romantic relationships. Longer than many careers. Longer than entire chapters of human identity. And yet most friendships quietly dissolve without either person recognizing what is happening. Interestingly, one of the most influential studies on relationships found that emotional closeness is largely determined by shared experiences and repeated interactions. In other words, friendship is less like a photograph and more like a fire. It doesn't remain alive because it once burned brightly. It remains alive because someone continues feeding it. This creates an uncomfortable realization. Perhaps many friendships don't end because people stop loving each other. Perhaps they end because life becomes too crowded for love to remain visible. But there is another reason friendships secretly fail, and it may be the most painful one. We rarely become friends with who people actually are. We become friends with who they allow us to see. Psychologist Carl Jung believed that human beings wear social masks or personas designed to help us function in society. These personas are not necessarily lies, they're survival mechanisms. The confident person may secretly be terrified. The funny person may secretly be depressed. The independent person may secretly feel abandoned. And because friendship often begins through these social masks, the relationship itself can become dependent on maintaining them. The moment someone changes, suffers, grows, or reveals their authentic self, the friendship experiences an identity crisis. Who are you if you're no longer the person I became friends with? Perhaps this explains why major life changes often destroy relationships. Success changes friendships. Failure changes friendships. Marriage changes friendships. Parenthood changes friendships. Loss changes friendships. Healing changes friendships. Ironically, becoming healthier sometimes costs people more relationships than becoming unhealthy. Because not everyone who supported your survival will support your transformation. The uncomfortable truth is that some friendships depend on mutual dysfunction. Two insecure people validate each other's insecurity. Two unhappy people normalize each other's unhappiness. Two lost people reassure each other that nobody knows what they're doing. And when one person changes, the entire emotional system collapses. Suddenly, growth feels like betrayal. Success feels like abandonment. Healing feels like rejection. This is why some friendships become strangely hostile when one person improves their life, not because they hate their friend, but because their friend's transformation forces them to confront their own stagnation. And perhaps nowhere is this phenomenon more visible than in adulthood. As children, friendship often emerges naturally. As adults, friendship becomes existential. Because adulthood forces us to answer uncomfortable questions. Who am I? What do I value? What kind of life am I trying to build? And the answers to these questions determine who can continue walking beside us. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche once wrote that every deep relationship contains an element of mystery. We never fully know another person. We only know our experience of them. This idea is deeply unsettling because it suggests that every friendship contains a degree of illusion, not malicious illusion, human illusion. The version of your friend that exists inside your mind is not the same person that exists inside theirs. You remember conversations they forgot. You assign meaning to moments they barely noticed. You believe they understood you in ways they perhaps never did, and they do exactly the same thing to you. Perhaps friendship is not the meeting of two people. Perhaps it is the meeting of two stories, and stories eventually change. But here's where most people make a critical mistake. They interpret the ending of a friendship as proof that the friendship wasn't real. This may be one of the greatest misunderstandings about human connection. A friendship doesn't become meaningless because it ended. A season doesn't become meaningless because winter arrived. A childhood doesn't become meaningless because adulthood followed. And a relationship doesn't become false because it changed form. The desire for permanence is one of humanity's oldest psychological obsessions. We want forever. Forever love. Forever happiness. Forever friendship. But human beings were never designed for permanence. We were designed for adaptation. Perhaps this is why losing friendships often hurts in a uniquely existential way. When a friendship ends, we don't simply lose another person. We lose the version of ourselves that existed with them. The friend who knew us before we failed. The friend who knew us before we succeeded. The friend who knew us when we still believed certain things about ourselves. In a sense, every lost friendship is also a lost identity. And maybe that's why old friendships can haunt us for decades. Not because we necessarily want the person back, but because we want access to the person we used to be. The problem is that life only moves in one direction. We cannot return. We cannot recreate who we were. And we cannot force relationships to survive transformations they were never designed to survive. Perhaps the goal of friendship was never permanence. Perhaps the goal was presence. To accompany another conscious being through a particular chapter of existence. To witness each other. To influence each other. To remind each other, however briefly, that life was not experienced alone. This doesn't mean we should stop investing in friendship. Quite the opposite. It means we should stop demanding immortality from something that was always human. The deepest friendships may not be the ones that last forever. They may be the ones that permanently change who we become. And perhaps years from now, when you think about the people who disappeared from your life, you will realize something unexpected. Maybe they didn't fail. Maybe they simply completed the role they were always meant to play. Because in the end, friendship was never a promise that someone would walk beside you forever. It was the miracle that, for a little while, they did.